So I've been on the carnivore diet for a little over a year now, and it has been one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. I used to think that it was actually kind of hard to do, but then I started kind of developing a prepping system, which is what we're going to go over in this video. It's going to be kind of like a hands-on, like this is how I sort of prep my food whenever it's kind of that time to prep food. So with that, if you don't know me, my name is Keegan. I help people get onto low carb, carnivore, whatever, so that they can improve their health and their life and their fitness. So yeah, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Let's talk prepping. So what I have here is a pork shoulder butt that I got for basically $2 a pound, whatever you round up for taxes and whatnot. So not too bad. And I think this is an important point to note for carnivore is that you want to get meat that is I think a great hack for prepping is to just get big cuts of meat like roast and stuff. So this pork shoulder butt is a great example of that. But you can also get stuff like, if you have the money for it, like the rib roasts that they sell at like Costco or whatever, like a strip loin roast. You can cut those up into steaks. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go ahead and buy a whole pork loin and I'll chop that up into pork chops and then divvy it out that way. I'll give you an example of that in just a second, but yeah, I buy a lots of pork because that's kind of what's within my budget and it tastes good to me. And that's kind of the other thing with carnivore is buy meat that you can afford that tastes good to you. Some people don't, react super well to pork, or they just don't like it, or it's not a part of their, like religion or culture to eat pork. I'm not really bound by that, so I like pork, so I eat it anyways. So yeah, again, buy stuff that's affordable to you. Most meat is relatively affordable, especially whenever you consider the nutrient to cost ratio, which is it just destroys anything else. Because even stuff like fruits and vegetables, they're still like really expensive, to be honest, because they're whole foods, right? They're going to be more expensive because they spoil faster. But the thing is like you don't get nearly as much nutrition from, say, fruits or vegetables than you do from meat. So that's a good argument in my opinion for carnivore. It's super cost effective and it's super easy. Let's get on to how I'm going to chop this up. So chopping this stuff up, it really depends on kind of, one, I guess how many you buy, and two, how much you want to prep at a time. Because for me, I'm just going to chop this up in half, and then I'll have a bunch of leftovers each time I prepare it, because it'll be, since this is 8 pounds, it'll be, roughly 4 pounds-ish, maybe a little bit less, if I cook each half. So that's a lot of meat, and I probably won't exclusively have this for my food for the day, so cooking each half, I'll have lots of leftovers and it'll be good. But if you want to chop it up into even more, or you don't want to chop it up at all, it's up to you. But I'm just going to chop this in half. I don't like the juices flowing all over the place because I don't have a massive cutting board, so I'll put paper towels in there so they don't spill everywhere as I take this out. Yeah. And then if you have the bags, just slap them in there. But yeah. And then whenever I'm chopping this up, I like to divvy out the fat cap the most, or the most evenly that I can. And so there's also a bone in here, so I need to be aware of that. Talking like a cooking expert, I'm not. It's just the thoughts I have in my brain. So yeah, I'm just gonna chop this kind of like in half, and then I'll just kind of cut around the bone a little bit. Yeah, it really helps to have a sharp knife here, because cutting through meat with a dull knife is just terrible. So make sure you have sharp knives or a really strong arm if you have a dull knife. But yeah, and then that's really it whenever it comes to divvying it out. I mean, I'm not gonna go crazy with like, oh, it needs to be exactly, 4.21 pounds. Like, I'm just gonna cut it in half and just deal with it, because there's plenty of meat per thing. It's not really that big of a deal, so don't need to stress out about that. But this brings us to kind of the second part here. I'm thinking I'm going to cook up this piece today, and then I'm going to put this one in the vacuum seal. So I'll show you in a second, but there's a vacuum sealer over on the other side of this counter here that we can put stuff in. And it's a huge investment. I really recommend, if you're on carnivore or you're doing really any meal prep, a vacuum seal is such a huge unlock, because you can literally just divvy up stuff and then vacuum seal it and then throw it in your freezer. And now some people might say, "Oh, but the microplastics in the bag," like, okay, whatever. You're gonna have to take the L, unless you have like butcher paper or whatever, which I don't. I'm just gonna take the L because I don't really care. Like, if you're super conscious about, whatever microplastics and whatnot, like, okay. But we're here to prep food, not to worry about microplastics. And that I've found that it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really affect the taste of the meat that much, or at all, actually. So yeah, I'm gonna bring this over here, and I'll bring you over here as well to vacuum seal. As you can see, vacuum sealer here, very cool. It shut off on me. You might be able to see the other few pork butts that I had in the background. And this kind of brings me on to the next point that I have, which is to, if you can and have the storage space for it, buy in bulk. Because as, like, on carnivore, I've found that it just makes life so much easier to not need to go to the store constantly. Like, I get it if you want to do like the whole shopping, fresh every day, and you don't really want to have anything in your cupboards or whatever. I can kind of understand that, but it gets annoying for me, honestly, if I have to go to the store day after day after day to like pick up, I don't know, just like a steak or some eggs or whatever. What I really like doing is just having my food all ready, and just kind of like maybe having it in the fridge defrosting, and then I pull it out and I throw it in the slow cooker, which we'll talk about in a second. And then, doing whatever activities that I have to do throughout the day, and then I can go ahead and come home and my food is just prepped, like it's just ready to go, so I don't have to go buy a steak, cook it up. Like, I think that's sort of the issue that people might find whenever it comes to, eating whole food, and that's kind of what tempts them to eat like junk food and stuff. It's like it's easy, it's prepped. But if you just take a few steps, earlier in the day, or just earlier, like what I'm doing right now, just, prepping your food, divvying it out, then, it makes the process a lot easier, and you don't have to think about, oh, can I, get like a meat bowl at Chipotle or whatever. Like, you can just have your food ready, and it's not as expensive, but it also just tastes absolutely amazing as well. So, hope that made sense. But yeah, we're gonna seal this up. We're gonna seal this bad boy up now. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Dude, I'm gonna do like the SpongeBob meme thing where it's like 12 hours later. I don't know what happened this time, but it just decided, like, sometimes the vacuum sealer will decide to do this and like vacuum seal wrong, but I mean it's still fine because I'll freeze it. Yeah, that's a little embarrassing. I apologize. Apologies for that. It normally works better, I promise. But yeah, that's kind of the process for divvying up food. And then obviously I'll just throw that in the freezer. So I'll freeze it, and then whenever I want to, like, I'll plan it out a little bit. Like I'll pull it out maybe, 3 days in advance, and then I'll cook it up, and then we'll be good to go. And then after I cook it, there'll be lots of leftovers. So that's a great thing. So yeah. But anyways, we're gonna take you over now. Hello. Take you over now. As you can see, many prepped pork butts. Very cool. We're gonna take you over to the crock pot here. Crock pot. Now, I believe this was like $50 or so. And crock pots are great because they're just slow cookers. And depending on which one you can get, but you can kind of select the amount of time you're gonna do. Like you can do 4 hours, 8 hours, up to 12 hours, maybe even more. And so you can there's lots of variety in terms of like what you can slow cook. And, tougher cuts like this pork butt is a really good way to, is a really good thing that you can slow cook because, since it's a little bit tougher, you can't really cook it up as like chops or steaks. I mean, you can, but they're gonna be a little bit tougher. If you want them tenderized, throw them in the slow cooker for, 6 hours, and they're just tender and amazing. And it's really great if you want to just like throw it in the morning and then go do your workout, your work, whatever, and then you have a meal waiting for you when you get back. So, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do because I have a lift coming up here, and this will I'm gonna basically be making my dinner right now, so that I can not worry about food for like the rest of the day and be all good. And then I'll have leftovers as well, so I can just eat those over and over until I'm out. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna show you my process with this for carnivore. It's very, very simple. So let me show you real quick. All right, so here is the ingredients for kind of this recipe that I do. Ta-da! That's boom. And so that's it. I don't even add salt anymore to most of my foods. And so you can add salt if you want, especially if you're on carnivore, and you're cool with salt. Me personally, I like salt, but I just find that it kind of messes with the satiety signals, which is something that I'm trying to listen to more of. And I find that salt just kind of disrupts the natural flavor of the meat itself. But, if you want to add it, feel free. I don't think there's really necessarily anything wrong with salt. A lot of people probably don't get enough salt or electrolytes in their diet. And especially if you're in the beginning stages of carnivore or a ketogenic diet, you probably should add some salt just to, balance out the electrolytes that you may be losing, switching from a bunch of carbs and high insulin to a lower insulin state, which is you're just going to hold less electrolytes for a little bit until it rebalances and gets your system gets used to it. But yeah, I mean that's really it. That's really why I think this is that's another reason why I think it's one of the best diets is it's just so simple. Like I literally just throw it in the crock pot and then I put it in for like 8 hours and then I'm good. It's so simple. If you're not carnivore and you're ketogenic or whatever, and maybe there's some vegetables that you like, I don't like vegetables, but if you do, feel free to throw them in there. If you like spices, okay, spice it up. I'm not a hater. I just don't like them myself, and I just don't think you need them. But if they help you stay on track and all that, go for it. And yeah, that's really all you really need to do. Maybe if you want to braise it in some bone broth, I do that every once in a while. Not really, because I just don't want to buy bone broth. Generally, the fat and the liquid kind of the water will evaporate out of it anyways, and then just steam it from there. You don't really need to braise it, but if you want to, go ahead. And yeah, that's just, I mean, that's really it whenever it comes to the prepping. So I just throw it in there, and then I'll turn on the settings here in just a second. I guess I can show you those as well. All right, and so after a little bit of deliberation, I have set it to 6 hours on high, and I'll put it at 2 o'clock for me today anyways. So yeah, I'll have it for kind of a late lunch, and then I'll keep the leftovers for later. But yeah, that's just kind of the prepping process that I do for carnivore that has made my life a lot easier. This is food. Like this, all of this here, it cost me maybe $60, I think was the total cost, because it was 4 roasts, about 8 pounds each. So we'll say like 32 pounds, right? 32 whole pounds of pork, right? And they're roughly $2 a pound each. So, you know, what, $64? And that's, you know, that's overestimating the cost. So, you know, $60. But this is food. I mean, it's honestly like a, a majority of the food that I can eat for, you know, a month and a half. I could probably stretch this out to 2 months as well if I add in other things as well. So, I mean, that's really why I like this, is just because I can just prep it out super far, and then I don't really have to buy food for a while afterwards, which is really nice. If you need help getting onto a carnivore diet, then I have a course for that down in the description. Kind of goes over the pitfalls that you could encounter and how you can kind of just go about getting on it in the first place. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check that out, and I'll see you in the next one.